This speech I'm about to give was fascinating to me due to the fact that it was done 52 years ago by a man that I really admire. And it really made me think about what's going on today in America with the protests for equality once again. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in the history and the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 40 years ago, a great America and those symbolic shadows we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been shared in the flames of withering injustice. It came at a joyous daybreak to the end, the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manicure of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro live on lonely islands of poverty in the midst of the vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corner of American society and find himself in exile in his own land. And so we come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. And since we come to our nation capital to cash a check, when the architect of our republic wrote the magnificent word of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promise note to whichever America was to fall heir. The note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be granted the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America had given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insignificant funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insignificant funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we come to cash this check, a check that would give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It will be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment that sweltering summer of the Negro legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro need to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation return to the business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shock to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerge. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn threshold which lead into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deed. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must raise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvel new militancy which had engulfed the Negro community, but not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the vote of civil rights. When will you be satisfied? When can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horror of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood, and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied. And we will not be satisfied until justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I'm mindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells, and some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of prosecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghetto of our northern city, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not swallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, and so even though we face the difficulty of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in an American dream. I have a dream that one day the nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold the truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the son of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, waltzing with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an age of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with a vicious racist, with a governor having his lip draping with the word of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, like black boys and black girls would be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hills and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the juggling discord of our nation to a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing new meaning. My country, 'tis a thee, sweet land of liberty, a thee I sing. Long where my father died, land of the pilgrim pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. If America is to be great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigy's hilltop of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountain of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightened elegies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curviest slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill in Mobile, Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happened, when we all allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village, every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestant and Catholic, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. After reading that, it brings tears in my eyes and sorrow to my soul to see what's happening in America 52 years later. A murdering of a black man caught on camera, him pleading and begging, saying that he cannot breathe, and crying out to his mom. To see 52 years ago, Martin Luther King saying, freedom, we still return to our slums, a major city where despair is. We still see racism in America, and with the president who's been voted in for the last 3 years, raise up, divide, innocent racism, and call out his dog whistle. But we all walk in God's glory. So once again I ask, and we are reading from the same Bible, what God are we worshiping? Because the God that I worship, see, all man created equal. The God that I worship gave his only begotten son for my sin, but not my sin, but the whole world sins.